Hola, buenos a todos. ¿Qué tal andáis? Espero que todo bien por ahí. Hacía tiempo que no hacíamos directo a estas horas, pero es lo que toca. Vamos a ver quién anda por el chat antes de pasarnos al directo de SpaceX, que está ahí en Twitter. El profe que enseña, saludos, muy buenas, Gustav, saludos, Olo, muy buenas, Walter, saludos, Azimov, muy buenas, Caliper, Sandy, yo no soy tú, saludos, Canal para entretenerse, saludos también, Jolipa, muy buenas. ¿Quién más? Jorge Benjamín. Y ahí estamos poquitos, estamos 17. Es normal, porque a estas horas es lógico. Así que, chicos, muchas gracias por venir a un directito más. Y se agradece vuestra presencia. Voy a pasar ya directamente a la página de SpaceX y voy a compartir pantalla ahí. Mientras vemos el directo, lo voy a hacer en grande. A ver, vale. Aquí, y aquí, y aquí. Están sin volumen o
This
con
could
volumen
be
bajito.
either 24 or 48 hours after today. It depends on how far we get into
Ahí.
the countdown. But
Vamos
for
ya,
now, everything's looking good as
como quien
we pass
dice,
coming
al
up on the
grano.
24-minute mark. I'll hand it back to you, Kate and Shiva.
El profe que enseña
Thanks,
dice, yo
John.
estoy desde
Now, that
temprano y
countdown
tanto.
is continuing
Ahí en
to
Argentina
progress,
es
so
bastante
let's
más
take a
temprano que
look
aquí.
at the and get more
A ver
familiar
cómo
with
se
the
ve. Un momento
vehicle
que está el
there
perro que
on
quiere
your
salir.
screen. Starship is the world's most powerful launch vehicle. It's currently currently with about twice the thrust of the Saturn V rocket, and with
Ahí
future
estamos.
engine
A
upgrades,
ver qué
it
tal
will
se
be
ve.
3 times more powerful. Those future
Vale,
improvements
se ve
will
bien,
allow
¿verdad?
Starship to carry
Perfecto, se ve correcto.
150 to 250 metric tons to orbit.
Now, for
Yo estoy de
reference,
temprano,
Falcon 9's heaviest
SpaceX.
payload to date is about 17 metric tons. So we're
La verdad es que se
talking
ha dicho
about an order of magnitude more with
que
Starship in
Elon
terms of payload
tiene
capability. And that matters because the amount
cierta
of
obsesión
mass that we're able to
con las
launch
X.
per rocket is
Pues ahí
crucial
estamos,
to
a ver si
creating a self-sustaining
despega
city on
el
Mars.
mostrenco
Now,
de
let's talk a
mientras.
little bit about how tall the
Yo
vehicle
estaba
is. The
viendo,
super heavy booster alone stands
porque
about
estoy
70 meters
controlando
tall,
la
and that's about
transmisión,
the
porque
same
estoy en
height as a
Twitch
fully integrated Falcon
y en
9.
YouTube a la
The
vez.
height of Starship on
Pero me
top
parece
of
que
it
va
is
bien.
comparable to that of the Statue of Liberty.
Vaya cohete niño,
But
pues te
of
puedes
course, the
imaginar.
most technical length unit is that of
Compara las
Godzilla's.
alturas que
And
tienes
we
ahí en
confidently
pantalla.
say that the fully stacked Starship and Super
El
Heavy
tamaño en
is
sí
at
es
least
una
as long
exageración.
as Godzilla tall. It just so happens that we refer to the launch and catch tower at Starbase
Y hay en
as
este
the
momento
Mechagodzilla from the
65.000
Godzilla movie.
espectadores,
And
casi
you can see
nada.
from
Uy,
that the resemblance is quite
se me ha
uncanny.
olvidado cambiar,
Very, very uncanny.
se me ha olvidado
Now, the
cambiarle
first
el
stage,
nombre
also
al
known as
bot.
the booster or super heavy, has a
Ah, mismo
diameter
lo
roughly
cambiamos.
2.5 times that of
Nando
Falcon
Mandos,
9,
muy buenas, ¿cómo
and with
andas?
33 much larger engines. More engines means more
A ver qué
power to
abra
deliver a massive amount
el
of cargo
navegador.
to space. Amazing view here. This is a view that we
Sabía
don't
que ayer
have
se
on
me
our
olvidó
Falcon
cambiarle
9
el nombre al
missions.
bot.
This is a view
Y digo, ya
looking
mañana lo
up
cambio.
under the super heavy
Porque
booster.
estaba en la
I
cama
love the
cuando me
shot. You can
acordé.
see
Digo,
all
pues ya había
33,
visto que no.
engines there. Now, one cool upgrade on the booster's engines, we have a new electronic thrust vector control system, or
¿Dónde está?
ETVCs.
Aquí.
We previously used the hydraulic system to control the positioning of the Raptor engines,
Vamos,
meaning we
lo que
tilted
hagamos.
them in flight using pressurized fluid.
Y ala.
Now, hydraulics are complex, and because they're
Ahí está.
fluid-based, they have the potential to leak. Not good.
O sea, que es
So,
probable
switching
que
to an
Elon Musk
electronic system
compre
means
X vídeos
fewer
también.
potential points of failure.
Pues visto lo
Also,
visto,
we're now
no lo
carrying less
descartes.
mass in the vehicle because we don't need to carry hydraulic fluids
No lo
anymore.
descartes en absoluto.
So,
El que
good
tiene
news
pasta,
all
tiene
around.
pasta.
Now, the electric system has lots of benefits
Lleguemos,
on
damos
its
play.
own. It only takes 30 minutes to activate
Oh,
for
qué
flight.
pesado
It
está el
doesn't
perro
consume
hoy.
resources when inactive, and they allow for regenerative charging like a Tesla battery.
Yeah, all great things when you're trying to rapidly reuse a vehicle. Now, moving up, Starship is designed for vertical takeoff and landing on any hard surface. That's opposed to taking off and landing on a runway.
Así que nada, ahí veremos a ver si vuela o qué es lo que hace. En teoría, según la cuenta atrás, no estáis viendo la cuenta atrás porque está el chat. O sí se ve, déjame ver si se ve, porque es que yo estoy viendo desde otro sitio. Yo estoy viendo desde otro lado y no sé si se ve. O sea, se ve un poquito porque le molesta un poco el chat. Quedan 21 minutos. Así que bueno, veremos a ver qué sucede. La transmisión, chicos, funciona bien, ¿no? No habéis apreciado ningún corte ni nada, me imagino. No debía haber ningún problema, pero bueno, por si acaso. Coño, me llega un aviso que está APMI también transmitiendo. Pero APMI está... ¿Desde qué canal? No me acuerdo qué canal es. A lo mejor está también como yo desde Twitter. No sabía palabra. Todo bien, vale, perfecto. Perfectísimo. Que solo he hecho una prueba con Restream.
As we talked about earlier, we are constantly learning and upgrading the vehicle after we test. Now, this is a pretty exciting first for our team, as hot staging has never before been used as part of a reusable space transportation system, let alone on a rocket with the size and power of Starship. Hot staging is a significant change from Flight 1, and we're really hoping to gather data on it during this highly dynamic phase of flight, and that is, once again, assuming that we even make it that far.
Disculpa mi ignorancia. ¿Este lanzamiento es tripulado? No. Es un... No es tripulado, es un test. Es el segundo test de vuelo que van a hacer. Y en teoría debía de completar una órbita que tienen ellos programada. Ellos tienen una órbita programada y bueno, es un vuelo de prueba. Supuestamente en el primer intento de vuelo que hicieron, tuvieron un problema de que les fallaron unos cuantos motores. Supuestamente ya han reforzado el problema. Creo que han cambiado alguna configuración más y en teoría debía estar solventado. Ojo, digo en teoría sobre el papel. Cristina dice, JR de Mundos conocido ante el libro de Enoch. Sujétame cubata, leo ahí. Mal vamos. Aunque podría llenarse TPS hasta el borde, no sé a qué se refiere Caliper. Por cierto, acordados de que tenemos un grupo de... Acordados que tenemos un grupo de difusión en Telegram. Tenéis ahí en el chat, en el comentario fijado arriba, para que os vayáis uniendo ahí y ahí vais viendo las noticias que tengo respecto al canal en general, próximos directos y demás.
Another reason to do hot staging, it reduces the risk at stage separation by moving to a passive system, deleting parts and simplifying, meaning physics is going to be doing
Y quedan 17 minutos.
mechanical parts that would otherwise be pushing the two stages away from each other.
Ahí cabía ATP. Yo ahí metía a todos los planitos posibles, a todos los terraplanistas posibles, en un vuelo con la máxima posibilidad de fallo posible. ¿Para qué no vamos a engañar? Con la máxima posibilidad de fallo posible, con no retorno. Vamos a dejarlo ahí. Y ahí están comentando novedades técnicas. YouTube me ha hecho una encuesta de medicamentos sin receta. ¿Qué cojones? Que por cierto, los de Meta están también súper asquerositos. El otro día me salió a ver si quería pagar para disfrutar de Facebook y de Instagram sin publicidad. Digo, voy a pagar una mierda, voy a pagar. Lo tenéis claro. Y en consecuencia me están saliendo anuncios scam, que básicamente lo que me he encontrado han sido programas de telediarios que les han modificado la voz con una IA. Dice Caliper, no, que se quede en órbita. Sube la cama. Sube, mantequilla.
Yeah, on Flight 1, the Starship's launch pad was damaged pretty significantly during liftoff as those super heavy Raptor engines fired their full thrust into the foundation for more than 12 seconds. So now we have a new high-pressure, water-cooled steel flame deflector system that we developed and installed between the flights, and there you can see the video of it dispensing 260,000 gallons of water. And that's designed to dissipate those
Ahí estamos viendo imágenes que también
and support rapid turnaround
están probando la nueva base de enfriamiento. Bueno, la nueva, mejor dicho, la nueva base refrigerada, que en teoría debería de aguantar. Desde que no está Kubrick, esto dije Nolan. Oh, hay un clip de vídeo. Joder, un momento.
Part of stage 0 we mentioned before, the launch mount. Kind of hard to see there, but it's what the booster is connected to. Oh, here we can see basically the legs of the launch mount. This is what holds Starship and all of its mass. It holds Starship during ignition, right there at the Super Heavy booster. This is what houses all of the equipment needed to fuel the Super Heavy
Hay un clip de vídeo, lo vi el otro día en Telegram, donde sale el estafador este de Landucci y reconociendo de que no era Kubrick el que salía en ese documental donde se decía de que el alunizaje era falso y demás, porque parece ser de que ha visto o de que había visto un vídeo de la hija de Kubrick, comentando de que ese no era su padre y demás. Y ahí se le ve como Iru, cómo está sufriendo, cómo lo está pasando mal, porque a él le gustaría que eso fuera real. O sea, es como cuando le dan un tortazo, cuando la realidad le da un tortazo en toda la cara. Pues así, en ese mismo plan. Se le ve, ¿no? Que a él le gustaría que fuera real.
We started that, and Starship is going to take this even further with a reusable first and second stage. Now, while most rockets are expended after their portion of the mission, SpaceX rockets land back on Earth and are quickly returned to our hangars to prepare to refly.
Que quedan 13 minutos y a ver qué sucede.
Of all Falcon 9 boosters that have flown this year have been reused, or as we like to say, flight proven. So while launching and landing
Muy buenas, Excel, saludos. La hija de Kubrick era quien habla en los making of. Puede ser que eso es lo que vio el estafador de La Plata. Va a ser que eso es lo que vio el estafador de La Plata y ya no lo puede, como se suele decir, disimular más. Porque aún así, si tú veías ese documental, ese falso documental, mejor dicho, en los propios, ¿cómo se llama? En el propio reparto, ahí salía especificado de que eso era un fake, que eso era un montaje. Y claro, muchos terraplanistas subían ese documental con la parte del reparto cortada y otros que no se enteraban de la vaina en absoluto lo subían íntegro y se veía claramente cómo el propio documental que ellos habían subido a su canal decía que era falso. Un chiste, vamos. Abajo están de rave.
F9 boosters over 245 times since our first reflight of an orbital class booster 6 years ago.
Yeah, and it really comes down to our design philosophy. If you're not failing in some way,
también debemos esperar un scoop. No sé qué es eso de scoop.
And failure doesn't just mean blowing up a rocket. It might be not being as efficient as we want to be or producing slower than we want to.
Nunca me había imaginado un cohete aterrizando así. Bueno, algún día tiene que ser el primero. Se queda la mano del ratón.
Falcon 9 has certainly come a long way, and Starship will too. But as a reminder, today is a test. We really hope to get to stage separation, but any data received will help us improve.
Cuando queden pocos segundos para lanzar, voy a quitar el chat y voy a quitar la webcam mía para ver únicamente el despegue y demás. Oscar Arroyave, saludos. Quedan poco más de 10 minutos. y que veremos a ver qué tal. No sé si está en directo Alice Ribeiro. Alice Ribeiro lo quería transmitir. Alice Ribeiro lo quería transmitir, pero claro, él tenía planeado hacerlo ayer. Y comentó de que no lo quería hacer en YouTube porque al haber sido en Twitch, al haber sido en Twitter y no en YouTube, él tenía miedo al tema de los derechos de autor. Mira, está en directo Ali Ribeiro también. Diego Bagú también está.
The first stop is our nearest neighbor, with a surface that hasn't seen visitors in more than 50 years. Under Artemis with NASA, Starship will return people back to the moon. After those first expeditions,
Ali Ribeiro también está en directo, haciendo exactamente lo mismo.
Think about that. Hardware that will enable us to live on another world is sitting on a launch pad on Earth right now.
¿Qué se sabe del Miura 1? El otro día leí algo del Miura 1 en alguna noticia, pero no me acuerdo en qué quedó al final. Pero según tengo entendido, debe ir todo bien, vamos. Pero habrá que seguir un poquito más lo que sucede con el Miura 1. Más que otra cosa, pues porque es un cohete diseñado aquí, pensado aquí, es 100% español. Y para algo que hacemos que sale bien, pues hay que hablar de ello. Ya sabéis, es 100% español, 110% español.
Dame veneno que quiero morir, dame veneno, que te prefiero la muerte que vivir contigo, dame veneno.
Muy español. Epa.
And on the graphic on the left side of the screen, you can see up in the nose of the second stage, what we call Starship, are those two header tanks for
Buenísimo.
fuel and liquid oxygen. Now that loading started at T-minus 24 minutes.
Oye, vaya delay. Me he dado cuenta que transmitiendo en Restream tengo aún un poquito más de delay. El himno de España también vale. 8 minutos, chicos. 8 minutos.
On the super heavy booster, propellant loading will continue until T-minus 3 minutes. We've also configured the pad for liftoff. A little earlier in the count, the hold downs, the booster hold downs were commanded to unlatch. That means
Y es enorme, aunque por la imagen no se ve, aunque por la imagen no parece, es enorme. Yo iba a mirar algo por el teléfono, pero no me acuerdo qué iba a mirar.
We ignite the engines a few seconds before T0. We don't lift off exactly at T0. We lift off a few seconds later, a couple seconds. Finally, the SpaceX team continues to check in with the Coast Guard to ensure there are no boats in the safety perimeter before proceeding with launch out over the Gulf of Mexico. Now, currently, we're coming up T-minus 7 minutes, 10 seconds.
7 minutos.
For the test flight of Starship. Propellant loading is continuing on both stages of Starship. We're waiting now for the completion of loading of the header tanks in the next.
Que no se confunda Elon de botón y pulse cualquier otro.
Stage is also beginning pressurization for flight while we are continuing to load propellant into it. And again, booster propellant load will finish at approximately T-minus 3 minutes. At that stage, both first and second stages are fully loaded, and we'll have the 10 million pounds of liquid propellant on board the 2 stages of Starship. Now, in the next few minutes, the guidance system will perform its final alignment.
A ver.
The automated flight termination system that'll arm, and the final TVC checkout will be performed. We may get a view looking up at the engines as we gimbal the 13 middle engines to check them out just before liftoff at about T-minus.
Ahí sale todos los motores.
If we need to hold, it would come at T-minus 4
También notas al bajar.
That's the point in the countdown where we can pause to wait for final checkouts or pressurization to complete. Or, as we're hearing right now, we're still working a few boats in the area that are headed south.
5 minutos.
And a lot of cheering here in Hawthorne. The boats are heading south, but we are still planning to hold at T-minus 40 seconds if necessary.
just amazing views of today's launch. There's nothing quite right like a launch at basically sunrise. Sunrise, I think, was just about 10 or 15 minutes ago out at Starbase.
De momento parece que va todo bien.
Yeah, these views are just incredible. Couldn't ask for a more beautiful day to attempt a test flight here. Again,
Mirar
these are
toda la
live
pila de vapor
views
que hay ahí,
of
qué salvajada.
Starship as it awaits its second integrated flight test. Our primary objective today is to get through stage separation. We really want to test out our attempt to perform hot staging, where we are going to ignite the engines on the second stage while
Sale humo blanco, consume mucho aceite. Igual tiene un problema con la junta de culata.
So essentially, both stages will be making fire at the same time. And that will push the booster away from the ship. It'll separate the two stages. So that's the primary goal for today. We really hope to be able to test that out.
Igual tienen gastados los segmentos, a una guía de válvula gastada también.
Is going to be incredibly helpful and help inform future improvements and iterations of the vehicle.
Yeah, Kate. There are other objectives for today too, assuming we get farther than stage separation. There's goals to test out how reentry goes on the ship portion. If the booster survives stage separation, then it's going to try a boost back burn and hopefully a soft landing as a sort of dress rehearsal for what it would look like on land. So everything coming up to that big design change, though, of hot staging today.
Yeah, exactly. Like you were saying, that
Planet, saludos, camarada. Saludos. Und einen.
In the Gulf of Mexico, we don't intend to recover any of the hardware for either the ship or the booster today. But that booster, yeah, we want to try and demonstrate controlled ascent.
Este arranca en segunda, casi.
Engine cutoff.
Por par motor no va a ser.
Hot staging separation and boost back flip. Trying to
Es el lanzamiento del Lars Flat 3. Es el lanzamiento del Lars Flat 50.
Like you said, it will help inform when we attempt a land landing, but we start in the water first.
Exactly.
Just like we did with the Falcon 9.
Yeah, exactly. And just getting to hot staging, though, is going to be farther than we got on Flight 1.
Yes.
Flight 1,
Que por cierto, los estafadores estos de Lars Flat iban a lanzar el globito y una vez más se han quedado con lo recaudado. Hay 118.900 espectadores. Según lo que veo, según el contador que ofrece aquí X. 3 minutos.
Once we get to T-minus 40 seconds, and if we did have a hold, depending on the reason for the hold, we can hold for up to 30 minutes. And today, actually, our entire launch window is about 20 minutes, so the whole duration would cover most of our launch window.
Yeah.
And that's different from Falcon.
Yeah, absolutely. With Falcon, we have to go exactly at T0. That 40-second hold is super helpful. If we need to, for example, we need more time to pressurize the COPVs for flight levels. Perhaps fuel.
If the engineers
Está viendo una
look at
cosita.
some of the data, see how engines are performing or the avionics.
Exactly. Those checkouts, being able to have the opportunity to top off the fuel or locks if it's not fully loaded. And, we might want to just take a few more minutes for that. So that T-minus 40-second hold can be really helpful. But we don't have that option on Falcon, so it's a little bit different here.
Uy. Quedan nada.
We're just inside T-minus 2 minutes and counting. The good news right now, we're hearing it.
Queda muy poquito,
We're
chicos.
gonna need the hold at T-minus 40 seconds as the boats are clearing out of the way. Next event coming up, TVC wiggles as we move the center
Muy
engines
poquito.
on the first stage.
1 minuto y medio casi.
You
Voy a
can see
quitar
maybe just a little bit there.
mi webcam y el chat para verlo entero.
90 seconds, wiggles are underway as we're checking out the first stage.
Apago. Voy a quitar el chat
TVC checks are complete.
y subimos volumen.
Next major event we're going to hear, hopefully, is the flight director go for launch at T-minus 30 seconds. As we're coming up on T-minus 1 minute, when we get to T-minus 40 seconds, we'll just listen in. Last time, as you recall, we did hold at 40 seconds, but it took a few seconds for the clock to recover, so we're going to watch that. And as we press to T0, we're going to watch and listen the second test flight of Starship.
Ahora me dice YouTube que quiere lanzar un anuncio. Las pelotas. Ahí le he dado a...
T-minus 30 seconds.
30 segundos, chicos.
Back to rapid recycle.
Uy, se ha parado el crono ahí, ¿no? Se ha parado el crono en 40 segundos. Oh, oh.
Back at Hawthorne, we're at T-minus 40 seconds in holding. We had a rapid recycle. We've not heard anything over the countdown net as the team works both first and second stages. We're going to monitor the nets here for a minute.
Blue Bean a tope.
Un pulpo.
Pero ¿por qué está el crono parado?
Got a little bit of an update. We're continuing to hold at T-minus 40 seconds. This is the normal hold point for Starship, as we talked earlier. Sounds like we're working just late pressurization on, I believe, the second stage. Team is working it. All the other systems are on hold right now at 40 seconds. We can hold here for about 15 minutes or so before we would run out of window for this morning.
9 por 3.
So right now they're working on filling pressure vessels. And ideally we'll be able to solve this and come back and release the clock at T-minus 40 seconds. We're going to continue to listen and monitor for another few minutes.
Tierra planita, le habla a su líder.
Qué tonto que soy.
Dice que es
And
normal que están
it's
trabajando
worth
en la
mentioning
presurización.
here that don't go away. We are holding at T-minus 40 seconds, but once the teams have resolved and see the data that they want to see, the clock can restart straight away, and it'll start ticking down from T-minus 40 again, all towards liftoff.
Yeah, exactly. Now, while we do have the ability to hold for up to 30 minutes, we only have a 20-minute launch window, so don't go away, don't change the channel, and just like Shiva said, we can restart that clock, and there it is.
And there it goes.
Clock
Empieza
is
el crono
rolling.
de nuevo.
T-minus 30 seconds.
La transmisión era mucho mejor en YouTube, ¿eh? Se veía mucho mejor que aquí.
T-minus 15.
Nada, no queda nada.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
Ahí vamos.
1. We have liftoff. Vehicle pitching downrange.
Ahí sale despegando.
We are T-plus 40 seconds into the flight of Starship. 33 Raptor engines powering the first stage.
Power and telemetry nominal.
We've heard power and telemetry nominal call out. We're heading downrange over the Gulf of Mexico. And that call out tells us Starship is through the period of greatest stress on the way to space. Our
Según la
next
gráfica,
major event is hot staging in just over 90 seconds from now. To get ready, the booster will shut down all but 3 of the Raptor engines. Clamps holding the 2 stages together will release, and the Starship's second stage will ignite its engines. Starship will then separate from the Super Heavy booster and head to space. And at the same time, the 3 engines that are still firing on Super Heavy will flip the booster around. 10 more engines will ignite for the boost back burn, putting the first stage on path for a splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico.
Va a ser que según la gráfica no ha fallado ningún motor. La gráfica que sale abajo a la izquierda. Así que en eso va bien. Tampoco hemos visto que el cohete se haya curvado o doblado.
Engine power continues to look nominal on 33 Raptor engines. We're about to shut down the first stage and perform staging. Let's watch and listen.
Romperá el domo.
Acquisition of signal Houston and New Orleans.
Va a romper el domo.
Booster engine cut off.
Ahora solo hay 3 motores en marcha.
Stage separation.
Boost back startup.
Ship engine ignition.
You're hearing the cheering. The first ever successful hot stage for SpaceX's Starship.
Incredible views of our Super Heavy booster. And as you can see, the Super Heavy booster has just experienced a rapid, unscheduled disassembly. However, our ship is still underway with
Ship
all
avionics,
6.
power and telemetry nominal.
And we just heard there, ship avionics, power and telemetry nominal. All 6 engines are lit, as you can see from the GUI there at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Now, we did know that the that hot staging was going to be incredibly dynamic. We knew that there was a chance that the booster would not survive, but we're going to take that data and figure out how we can make the booster better for the next hot stage.
Yeah, that hot staging put a lot of load on the top of the booster. And of course, it flipped around there, a lot of dynamic stuff happening. But ship is still going strong.
And it's doing great. Right now, the ship, the second stage, is on its way. Like we said, you can see all 6 of its engines are ignited. The next major milestone for the ship will be the shutdown of those engines, or SECO, second engine cutoff, which if you follow our Falcon 9 launches, familiar terminology there. So far, today has been incredibly successful, even with the RUD of the Super Heavy booster. This is amazing.
Primary objective of the booster today, to get to hot staging, to get ship on its way to orbit. It did that admirably.
Yeah, we definitely asked.
Starship trajectory nominal.
All right, great news there. That trajectory for ship is
Acquisition of
nominal.
signal Cape Canaveral.
Once again, Starship's second stage. It's firing those engines. And as you just heard, everything's looking good. Now, for the ship, we wanted it to survive hot staging, which, as you can see there by that little dot on your screen, it did. We also want to basically demonstrate that the successful startup of those engines, demonstrating controlled ascent, which is what it's doing right now, and eventually orbital insertion. We are hoping to basically send this around the Earth. And if it makes it this far, splash down in the Pacific Ocean, a couple hundred miles north of Hawaii.
Muy buenas, Anchonable. Saludos.
Now, if we get that far, like all of that sounds great. Secondary objectives for ship, again, continuing to gather engine data and about its health, performance.
Nominal ship chamber pressures.
Great news there. That tells us that the chamber pressures inside of the Starship, again, that's that small dot on your screen, basically the propellant pressures in the ship are looking good.
Explotó la primera etapa.
Yeah,
Sí,
the
la
bottom
primera
right
ya,
corner of your screen, you
ya
can
cumplido su
see
función.
essentially a user interface showing us which engines are lit. So the 3 center sea level Raptor engines on ship are gimbaling engines. The 3 outer engines in the triangle, the larger ones, are Raptor vacuum engines. All of them continuing to fire nominally. So they're at the pressures that we expect to try to get into our target trajectory today.
Yeah.
And we're not targeting orbit today. We're targeting almost orbit today. That's very intentional as part of the mission design. The goal is to get to a thrust profile similar to what we would need for orbit, but also
And
to get to the
expected
energy
signal,
levels
Houston.
that the ship would need to dissipate for re-entry. And so we're actually going in a suborbital trajectory today, but that trajectory will get us to the energy levels that we need at re-entry, where we can really stress that heat shield and get valuable data on re-entry. And those calls that we are still on a nominal trajectory here and seeing nominal pressures means that we have a really good shot of hitting our target orbit.
Yeah. Now, if the booster had survived, we would be around the time where it would be getting ready to land, performing its re-entry, but it unfortunately did not survive. That being said, that's okay. It survived several seconds after hot staging, so we're going to take that data and improve the hot staging sequence and probably improve the hardware itself for the next flight.
148 kilómetros de altitud. Y 24.124 kilómetros de velocidad. Casi nada. Que por cierto se han parado los dos contadores. Muy buenas, Yoga.
They're standing by for a call out here. Coming up on the projected time that ship would shut down its engines.
No veo un pimiento.
As you can tell by the excitement from the crowd here at Mission Control Center in Hawthorne, there's a great view of our Star Command Center. That's our control center at Starbase Texas. The crowd here, Mission Control Center behind us in Hawthorne. Everyone is super exciting. What a successful day this has been so far.
Hay que esperar a recuperar señal.
And I mean, up to this point, major successful milestones through hot staging, which was the big objective today. So we are going to head into the coast phase, planned for the next about hour and 5 minutes. We'll be returning around the T+1 hour and 15-minute mark. And that's while we're waiting for Starship to continue on to its next step for re-entry. We're not totally sure what video we're going to get, and that video comes normally by overflying ground stations, but we don't have a ton along our flight path. So fingers crossed that we will get some via Starlink on this mission since we're testing that out.
Ahí es cuando están jugando al LOL y otros están trabajando con el CGI. Todos esos son los chicos de NVIDIA.
And also give us a moment. We are hearing some chatter on the net, so we're going to try to parse that for you.
Todos son CGI. Hasta los que están haciendo el CGI son CGI también. O sea, loco, muy buenas. Ha roto el domo y por eso se ha puesto el cielo naranja. Son los sonoluminescencia de gases en
We're
estado
back
crítico.
here in Hawthorne at our
Joder.
webcast desk. we have lost the data from the second stage. We had heard a call out that we were internal guidance, which means we were getting near the end of the approximately 6-minute burn of Starship. But we haven't gotten any more data since then, so we think we may have lost the second stage. So we would not be into coast phase. We wouldn't be able to come back in an hour or so and possibly get ready for reentry. However, what we do know right now is we had an on-time launch at 7 o'clock. We got through the boats. First stage looked beautiful with 33 Raptor engines firing. We got the hot staging, you know, the thing that we really wanted to see and impressed. We saw the separation. We saw the flip maneuver. We saw the light up of the 6 Raptor engines on Starship, and it headed away. Everything really looked good. But what we do believe right now is that the automated flight termination system on second stage appears to have triggered very late in the burn as we were headed downrange out over the Gulf of Mexico. But the real topping on the cake today, that successful liftoff, Kate, Shiva, the hot staging is just beautiful. Exactly what we were looking for.
Yeah, ultimately, honestly, such an incredibly successful day. Even though we did have a RUD or a rapid unscheduled disassembly of both the Super Heavy booster and the ship, that's great. We got so much data, and that will all help us to improve for our next flight.
Of course, and that's why we flight test, and you can bet that there's going to be more to come. So we really do want to thank you all for joining us. Of course, we want to thank the people of Cameron County. We want to thank all the federal agencies that have supported us for our test. And of course, a huge congratulations to the entire SpaceX team on getting through this flight test today. And I think with that, we're going to sign off from here in Hawthorne.
Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Y ahí quedó. No sé si realmente era así o han tenido un problema de comunicación o algo. Estoy contra el espíritu de Mad Mike y tanto. Estaba midiendo la transmisión, que no sé si esto me pedía y dar más de bitrate. Pero bueno, para otra ocasión. Pues yo creo que ya está. Me parece a mí. A mí me parece que ya está. Aunque ya estaría, mejor dicho. Porque SpaceX está teniendo la sintonía de final de transmisión. Así que yo creo que sí. Esto fue muy anticlimático, la verdad. Creo que lo he terminado, puede ser. Sí, efectivamente ya terminó porque ya están bajando los espectadores y demás. Posiblemente tiene pinta de que hayan perdido la señal de transmisión. Sí, es lo que estoy leyendo yo. No reciben señal, dicen que parece que explotó. Así que éxito hasta cierto punto. Éxito hasta cierto punto, porque que el tema de la separación y demás fue bien, pero el resto a la mierda. Horchata, bájate de hostias y baja el circuito en cuanto cierre aquí. A ver, ¿qué me está escribiendo por Telegram? Vale, pues prueba y error, la NASA 10 tarde, Paguen el wifi, ratas. Capaces. Bueno, nada, chicos. Como aquí ya han cerrado la transmisión, cerramos nosotros también. Así que nada, estuvo bien hasta que aguantó. Nos vemos, chicos. Descansen, disfruten del sábado.
conspiracionistas de todo el mundo. Sus líderes ya no tienen poder. Su momento se está acabando. La ciencia triunfará por sobre la ignorancia.
Humano, revélame tu conocimiento. ¡Qué carajo!